Minato Namikaze is a fan favorite. Nobody can deny it. An official poll of the fan base proved as much. We love us some Minato. So the concept of Minato being the main star of the Naruto series seems to be the natural step for a what if. What if Minato Namikaze starred as the main protagonist of Naruto? How would that have changed things? Well, let's take a look and see. Please turn your gaze up to the moon above and look upon a brand new world. One where Minato reincarnated as Naruto. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The Academy. Very few could keep up with Minato. To him, this was a waste of time, but all the same, he wanted to do it. Hiruzen had given him the chance to decide to do anything he wanted, including graduating early, but Minato didn't wish to do so. His reasoning for this was that he simply wanted to see how the future generations of shinobi were growing, in a world where intelligence was increased, where teaching styles had improved, and where peace had provided every tool required to foster growth. Minato wanted to see what would become of this generation, and so Hiruzen let him do just that. Minato always aced his tests, scoring near perfect hundreds almost every time, with only a few trick questions, history questions involving dates, and certain math questions eluding him. All that being said, he also often signed his paper wrong. It seemed a strange thing that such a smart student could get the easiest question of all wrong. What is your name? The paper couldn't even be properly graded without this question being answered. None of this truly mattered though in the case of his career. Given his intelligence and his extraordinary chakra reserves, Minato could go to Jonin right now if he wanted to. He simply wanted to gauge the other children. He looked over Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino. Those three were the next generation of the Ino Shikacho trio. They were to follow in their parents' footsteps. What a heavy legacy to try and live up to. Minato firmly believed that it was only because he wasn't under any pressure that he got to the point he was at. He'd never known his parents and had never seen another shinobi of his clan. He was a true nobody. Given that, he never had to worry about living up to anyone's expectations. It was because of this that he felt free to move at his own pace. It was the freedom and lack of expectations that allowed him to grow so quickly. They, on the other hand, had legacies to live up to. As he looked at them though, he could tell that they didn't really seem to care about the kind of shinobi that their parents wanted, so much as the kind of shinobi that they wanted to be. And in the end, having known Shikaku, Inoichi, and Choza personally, he assumed that this was the type of shinobi they expected their children to be. He then looked over and noticed Hinata Hyuga and her cousin Neji. Both were quiet, but neither for the same reason. Hinata was quiet because she was kind and shy, easily emotional, and had a heart big as all outdoors. She wouldn't hurt a fly, and that was precisely the reason that Minato felt like she would likely not make a very good clan head. Or maybe that's why she would make for the best kind of clan head. If she could manage to increase her courage without losing her heart, she could and would surpass every clan head to precede her. Now looking to Neji, he was symbolic of everything wrong with the Hyuga. He possessed a curse mark he resented, but just as much as he resented the mark, he resented Hinata due to being forced into her servitude. It was Minato's hope that Hinata and Neji could learn to get along, and if they did, he believed that there was a chance that they could, together, learn from each other and reform the Hyuga clan from the inside out. As he continued to gaze around the room, he then noticed Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke was the legacy of a fallen clan, and as emotionally scarred as he was proud. Never upon his face had there ever lighted a smile. At least, not in his presence. Minato had never expected Itachi to do what he did. Itachi was so sweet and a pacifist to boot. The shinobi life had never been the life for him. Minato had always felt that Itachi had the soul of an artist, like a painter, a sculptor, or anything else that one could do to display the beauty of life. But war and its influence, as well as societal and familial pressures, had forced him into the life of a shinobi, and from what Hiruzen had told him, he was damn good at it. Hiruzen had said that Itachi had done it for his village, under bad orders given to him from Danzo Shimura. Even still, he hadn't guessed that Itachi would be capable of it, whether through coercion or not. And now Minato watched this unfold before his eyes, the fallout of Konoha's inability to protect itself from itself. Minato felt that he bore some level of responsibility. These seedlings of revolt were already planted by the time he died, and he knew they would only grow. But he foolishly ignored it, thinking he had more time, and now an entire clan had ceased to be. The worst part of this was that he saw that Sasuke was suffering, and Minato had the information required to alleviate this. Sasuke was consumed by rage. rage and revenge, and to know that Konoha had lied on his brother might push him over the edge. But the truth was something that always came out, no matter how much you hated it, and Konoha was going to have to pay the piper. Minato would need to talk to Hiruzen about it. As the school day came to an end, Minato would take off and go to the job he had at Yamanaka Flowers. Nobody knew that Minato was still alive, and this was for the best. The only person who knew was Hiruzen, and this was by Minato's request. Making for his job, he was welcomed in by Inoichi and his wife. Minato greeted them and grabbed an apron. He went to work, pruning the flowers, sweeping the shop, and changing the water in the vases. In doing so, he would earn a little bit of money. This money he would use to help himself stand instead of requiring the hard-earned cash of the village's citizens. That, and it also gave him a little extra to use whenever he wanted to. And trust me, there were times when he wanted to go out with friends and enjoy life. Despite his memories, he was still a child in body, and that formerly inner, currently outer child got dopamine rushes from all sorts of things that Minato originally wouldn't be caught dead doing. This included playing at the arcade, and every once in a while procuring some action figures to, as he put it, change position with dialogue. This was what he told Hiruzen at least, but the truth of the matter was his body wished to experience childhood. His mind was tempted to allow it, and knowledge that he was currently hijacking the body of the son he had lost, he could do nothing more than try to live the fullest life possible in Naruto's name. But letting Minato's own value increase through life experiences, it would be squared upon Naruto, whose life he hoped would have felt worth it when Minato finally got the chance to meet him in the afterlife. "Good work, Naruto," Inoichi called out. "Your cuts are exceptional. Are you sure you've never done this before?" he asked with a laugh. Minato laughed. "Maybe in a past life." They continued to chortle at this joke that wasn't really a joke for a good few seconds more. That was when Inoichi pulled out a bouquet. "We actually have an order to deliver. A bouquet has been ordered for Miss Kaya at the Obito Foundation's Golden Leaf Retirement Home. Would you mind delivering it for us?" Minato was taken off guard for a moment, but then nodded. Sure. He took the bouquet and made his way out. He wasn't gonna lie, he had not heard about the Obito Foundation, though he had seen the Golden Leaf before. The retirement home had been built in recent years for elderly folk where they could be taken care of. The foundation had been formed in Obito's name after the death of his grandmother. Who formed it remained a mystery, but Minato knew that it fit well. Obito was a kind boy at heart, and in the end it was that kindness that had gotten him killed. It was one of the biggest regrets that Minato had. He wished that he had been there with them, or had not left them that mission to do alone at all. Kakashi obviously wasn't ready, and even though he recovered quickly, it could not undo the damage done, and Obito paid the price. Not that Minato blamed Kakashi. Chances were Rin would have been captured anyway, and it had happened still. Rin was also a casualty of the war. And with his own death, Kakashi was now alone. Minato walked into the retirement home and up to the front desk. "I have a bouquet delivery for Miss Kaya. Is she here?" The nurse smiled. "She's in room 11. He then made his way to room 11. He stopped there and knocked 3 times. When there wasn't a response, he knocked again 3 times. "Delivery!" A voice from within called to him. "Come in." Minato stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Greetings, Miss Kaya. I'm Naruto Uzumaki from Yamanaka Flowers. You have a bouquet." The elderly woman was confined to a bed. "I have a vase here on the bedside table." Minato walked over to the vase and placed the flowers in. He then went and got a glass of water and poured it in. As he did, he saw an old photograph of a younger woman and what he assumed to be her husband. Considering she was alone now, chances were that he passed away. "Thank you, Sonny," she said to him with a smile. He smiled back. "It's my pleasure." He looked around and saw that the room was slightly dirty. "Do you live alone, Miss Kaya?" She looked around. "Sadly, yes. My husband passed away about 4 years ago." Minato went and grabbed a broom and began to sweep up. "You don't have to do that, dear." Minato smiled. "No, it's my pleasure." He assumed that the retirement home was either understaffed or possibly lazy, and he didn't want to leave the kind woman in such a state. "Do they take care of you well here?" he asked. "They do. They don't like to sweep, but they certainly do make sure we're at least comfortable." "I'm glad," Minato said. He sort of lost track of time doing this, as the kind woman would tell him stories of the past. Eventually, Minato realized that he'd been here for over an hour. He finished sweeping. The kind woman would bid him over and offer him a kiss on the cheek for his efforts. Minato, in turn, would kiss her hand. "I'll see you very soon, Miss Kaya." She would laugh. "Take care, young Naruto." Minato would rush back to Yamanaka Flowers. He was expecting to be chewed out for being late and dilly-dallying. However, when he got back, he was surprised to find that this couldn't be further from the truth. Inoichi would call him over to tell him that he had just gotten a call from the delivery recipient complimenting Minato's work. Inoichi would ruffle Minato's hair and tell him that it was the heart and kindness that came with Yamanaka flowers that made their work top-notch. He told Minato that his kindness and need to serve showed a love for the village that any shinobi should possess. Inoichi foresaw Minato becoming a great shinobi one day. Minato would smile, thinking that he had already been a pretty good one, but now it was time to make his son a good shinobi as well. After work, he would head home where he'd meet up with Hiruzen. "How are things, Minato?" Hiruzen would ask as the two shared dinner. "Things are going by pretty well. School's a breeze, and it's nice to see the village has grown past the wars we all waged not more than a few years back." Hiruzen would take a sip of tea. "Tensions rise, but it is a time of peace and profit indeed." Minato would sit there and think a moment. "Can we talk about something?" Hiruzen would look up at his young successor. "What is it, Minato?" Minato seemed deep in thought as his gaze stared through the carpet beside their table. "Itachi received bad orders from Konoha's leadership, yes? And that's why he did what he did, right?" Hiruzen nodded. "Yes. What about it?" Minato looked up at Hiruzen. "Why don't we explain this to Sasuke? He deserves to know. And what good would it do Sasuke? It would only cause him to resent Konoha." "Because it's the right thing to do," Minato said. "The truth always comes out. A shinobi keeps secrets, that's true, but he should not keep secrets from those he loves, nor should he keep any secrets that he's not willing to deal with if they get out. You must understand, Minato. If word of this got out, it would be a scandal. But it is a scandal, Hiruzen, and it's one that I feel will be told." "How so?" Hiruzen asked. "You and I both know Itachi, and we both knew the Uchiha clan. There's no way that Itachi alone could do what he did. I know he now has that Mangekyo thing, but it just doesn't add up. The mission was completed abnormally fast. I read the files on it. There's no way that even with a Mangekyo that Itachi had the ability to sweep the entire clan that quickly. He would have had to kill an Uchiha every 5 seconds, and that doesn't even count travel time. Someone else was involved, but we don't know who. The truth is already leaked." Hiruzen thought about it. "But the means of telling Sasuke could see the entire leadership of the Hidden Leaf called into question. The other clans could wish to rebel. There's no telling what could happen." Minato nodded. "But it's true that this truth is hurting Sasuke. Even if he knew, he would want justice, and that would expose it to the world. What are we supposed to do?" Hiruzen asked. "Simple. Throw Danzo under the bus." Hiruzen was shocked. "What?" Minato poured himself more tea and continued his meal. "This was his screw-up. He should take the fall for it. Expose his deeds and what he's done, and then put him on trial for his actions. You and I both know that what he did was a gross misuse of power, and equivalent to treason. Whether there was going to be a rebellion or not, he ordered a military strike on Konoha citizens off the books, with the stipulation that not even women and children could survive. That's war crime levels of bad, Hiruzen. You can do as you want, but I'm just saying, if it were me, I'd grow a pair and nail Danzo to the wall. But what do I know?" Hiruzen began to think. "Do you have proof of his treason?" Minato asked. Hiruzen nodded. "I do, but the issue that remains is that Itachi is currently deep undercover. If word of his innocence comes out, his position may be compromised." Minato nodded. "I see." He thought about it. "Well, if we're going to use lies to protect the damned, we might as well use lies to protect the innocent. I say we find something else to nail Danzo to the wall over, then state that this is actually the reason why he's facing justice, but the truth of why will be just for us and Sasuke to know." Hiruzen shook his head. "Danzo has too much power. If we do that, he'll bring Konoha down on us. He'll reveal everything. Danzo is not the kind you can cross. His loyalty to the village extends only so long as the village's loyalty to him does. He will expose everything. We're dealing with deep corruption that I should have removed a long time ago. That is now so deeply seated that there's no hope of removing him without the village taking a hit." Minato took a deep breath and sighed. "You're really gonna make me say it, aren't you?" Hiruzen looked up. "Pardon?" Minato sat back and rolled his head on his neck, letting it crack. "We could remove him from the equation, the same way that he removed the Uchiha." Hiruzen was mortified. "Do you mean you want me to assassinate my own subordinate? Isn't that evil? Doesn't that go against what you've told me before about the truth coming out eventually? Assassination would only dig us deeper." Minato nodded. "You're right, I'm sorry. I suppose it shows that as a Hokage, I'm still slightly immature." Hiruzen shook his head. "Your heart is in the right place, Minato. You're right, we need to do something about it. But what we can do is limited. I'm not sure what we're supposed to do. Do you think Sasuke's loyal to Konoha? Truly?" "What do you mean?" Hiruzen asked. "What I mean is, what if we explained this whole situation to him now? Surely he'd understand." The only reason why we can't expose Danzo is because Itachi's life would be in danger. If we framed it that way, we could pin his hatred on Danzo, explaining why we can't bring him to justice. Hiruzen listened to what Minato was saying. Do you think he would go for that? Minato nodded. I think he would. He deserves to know. If we let him travel down this path of hatred, it will consume him. And should the truth come out in the wrong way, it would destroy him. Hiruzen nodded. You're right. I need to talk to Sasuke about this. Just tell him the honest truth. After dinner, Hiruzen would leave the home. He was going to go back to the Hokage's office and begin preparing to find a way to tell Sasuke the truth. Minato would stop by every so often to help him formulate his plan. And eventually, Hiruzen told Sasuke. Sasuke's reaction was at first surprise, then confusion, and as predicted, his hatred moved from Itachi to Danzo. But Sasuke's love for Itachi stabilized the situation by informing Sasuke that to seek justice at an inopportune time could result in Itachi getting hurt. Despite this, Hiruzen sensed in Sasuke the desire to have Danzo killed. This was something he told to Minato on one of the occasions of their talks. Minato would sigh and think about it. What we need to do is assure Sasuke that justice will come, just not right now, and that he shouldn't throw his life away to achieve something that will come in due time. Hiruzen agreed with this, and it seemed as though Sasuke settled in. But this world-altering information left Sasuke with a lot to digest, so he was excused from the academy for a couple of weeks. But time would eventually pass, and the time to graduate would come. Minato, of course, passed with flying colors, as did Sasuke and the rest of the class. That night, Minato and Hiruzen would celebrate. Hiruzen would decide to allow Minato to choose his team. Minato would look through the candidates and choose Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. But furthermore, he requested that his team be placed under Kakashi Hatake. Minato was interested to see how his former student had grown. Hiruzen would agree to this and allow the custom-made team to become a reality. And as the day came that they would meet, Team 7 would be born, unofficially, but born nonetheless. They would go to introduce themselves to each other, and as Minato got to go first, he went with the most cliched dream of them all, and that was to be Hokage. It only made sense, as he'd been the fourth before, and he wished to be Hokage again. But tacking on top of that, he stated that above all else, he wanted to see how the village could grow and prosper, and how this generation and the generations to come would build upon the former and excel to new heights. This dream left Kakashi staring at him. Never took you for a sentimentalist, Naruto, but I guess there's a first for everything. He then turned to Sakura, and of course Sakura hadn't changed. She, like every other girl in the class, had the hots for the 3 days grace ninja reject, and she made it painfully clear that everything in her future was set upon him. Sasuke, on the other hand, was mostly silent when his turn came. He knew that he couldn't just blurt out everything and anything. He couldn't be truthful about his dream, so he went with something vague. To bring back my clan and find justice for them. Kakashi, of course, hilariously offered no information and treated this whole meet and greet as a test that everyone failed. This left Minato laughing, as Kakashi was more than he ever thought he could be. Not only was he wise and no longer as depressed as he had been, he was also quite laid back and even funny. Then, without further explanation, Kakashi stood and led the 3 of them out to a training area. Minato was excited to see what Kakashi had planned. It was then that Kakashi pulled out the bells. Minato almost cried for joy that his student had remembered them and the meaning behind it, and was trying to teach this to the next generation. Despite holding back his tears, he could not hold back his smile. Kakashi thought he seemed quite strange for that, but all the same they continued. Minato was getting fired up to try and get those bells, but remembering who he was, what he could do, and what the others could and would need, he knew that he'd have to hold back and make an ass out of himself a little to see whether his team was going to be able to handle the pressure of forming an alliance on their own. If not, he could urge them to do so together, but all in all, it was up to them to truly decide whether or not they actually wanted to do this. And so Kakashi finished explaining what the bell test was for and told them to come at him. So the group would rush into battle against their mentor to try and take the bells. Minato was first in, attempting to take it. He was sure to signal to Kakashi that he should expect that Minato's potential was higher than the average student. He did this in the hopes that if he ever needed to go full Yondaime Hokage on someone's ass, then they wouldn't be completely shocked. This, of course, did slightly catch Kakashi off guard, who had to divert full attention away from his book and to Minato, who he then subjected to 1,000 years of death, which sent Minato straight into the nearby lake. Minato came out of the water less than thrilled with that technique. It's a good thing I know Kakashi, or else I'd friggin' crush him for that. He came out of the water and shook off like a dog before rushing back into battle. He let Sasuke have his moment. Minato stopped long enough to watch Sasuke and found his potential to be higher than the average shinobi as well. He was pleased with this, but Kakashi was not. Kakashi had noticed Minato stop rushing in when he saw Sasuke and took it as Minato letting Sasuke have a turn before taking one of his own. This led Kakashi to believe that the group was not sincerely attempting to make the team work and decided to up the game by forcing it into the deeper area of the woods. Minato and the others followed after. It was then that Sasuke declared that they should split up. "Are you so sure that's a good idea?" Minato asked. "Of course it is, dumbass. We cover more ground that way and have a better chance of taking him off guard." Minato sighed. "Okay, fine." And so the three of them would split up. Minato went his own way. Of course, he would cheat with Sage Mode and simply sense where Kakashi was, but he found that this would be too easy and wasn't enough fun. So he decided to do it the old-fashioned way and attempt to track him. He looked for Kakashi signs everywhere he went. That was footprints, crushed leaves, and broken branches. He knew he had taught his apprentice not to leave these tracks behind, but for Kakashi to be able to adequately test his charges, he would need to hold back just as much as Minato was, so he knew that he could follow these signs. More than likely, this would lead to a trap, because the point of this wasn't to defeat Kakashi, but to utilize teamwork to impress him. But all the same, Minato attempted to fall into the traps. This was, after all, Minato testing Kakashi as much as Kakashi was testing Minato. And as he did so, he found himself hanging from a tree by his foot. A classic trap, one Minato hadn't fallen into for a long time. Even though he knew it was there, he was in a jovial mood and wanted to feel the blood rush to his head. That being said, he was easily taken by the trap. As he hung there by his foot, all he could do was smile, much to Kakashi's discomfort. "You really are a kooky one, Naruto." He would rush off into the forest to lay the next trap. Minato would hang there for a time to give Kakashi a head start. He would then cut himself down and land upright like a cat. He rushed off after Kakashi. Finding the site of the second trap, he found that it was not set for him, but instead for Sakura, who had apparently fallen for some very obvious genjutsu. Kakashi was just playing games with them at this point. This wasn't even a Sharingan genjutsu, this was just standard that anyone could learn. Minato would then raise his fingers. Release! Despite having released the genjutsu, she didn't wake up. Minato smiled and shook his head. "Must have hit you with something horrible," he said. He looked around. "Oh, hey Sasuke," he said to nothing. "What's that? You're feeling hot? Yeah, go ahead, take off your shirt. You're among friends." Suddenly Sakura shot up. "Yeah, you're among friends." She looked around. "Sasuke?" She turned back and saw Minato rolling on the ground laughing. She was sure to punish him for that one, but together the two continued. Minato with one more lump on his head than before. They would make their way deeper into the woods where they would find the third trap, this time having caught Sasuke. He'd been buried in earth all the way up to his neck. This caused Sakura to faint once again, believing that she had found Sasuke's severed head. Minato simply stepped over here and walked up to Sasuke. He held out his hand and used Earth Release to secretly loosen the dirt so Sasuke could get his arm out. He would pull him up out of the ground. Sasuke would dust himself off. "As much as I hate to admit it, I think Kakashi-sensei is too much for us alone," he said. This was exactly what Minato was hoping to hear. This meant that Sasuke was open to teamwork. Looking back at Sakura, he knew that she'd be up for anything that Sasuke was, so when they woke her up, they began developing a plan. They finally tracked Kakashi down again, simply waiting in a large opening, leaning against a tree, whistling slightly loudly as if drawing attention to himself. The three of them got into position. Sasuke would step out into the open. "Kakashi!" he shouted. "I've come for the bells." Kakashi would sigh. "You never learn, do you?" "Maybe he does," Minato shouted as he and a shadow clone grabbed his arms from behind. They locked legs together to form a strong chain, and used their chakra to provide themselves strength. Kakashi was caught. Sasuke would then launch a fireball jutsu. Kakashi, unable to break free, would channel lightning release to turn himself into an electric battery that would shock Minato. He would then attempt to jump out of the way. Sakura would jump out of the treetop as Kakashi passed by, knowing that there was nowhere for him to go up there. She gripped onto his hips as tightly as possible and fell to the ground with him, sabotaging his ability to catch himself. As soon as he fell, Minato and his clones dogpiled on him while Sasuke grabbed the bells. Having grabbed the bells, the three of them celebrated their victory over their mentor. Kakashi sat up and scratched the back of his head. That was a very good plan, gang. In truth, it was a good plan, but it only worked because Kakashi wasn't trying and because he left himself open. Minato knew this, but he was still proud of his team all the same. But now comes the hard part. Which two of you are going to become my students and who's going back to the academy? Kakashi asked. Each of them looked at each other. Minato knew this was a game, and even if it wasn't, he had seen how well Kakashi had grown and was willing to give up his place for the others. Sasuke was confident enough in himself that he felt he could make it with any teacher, so he also would pass it up. Sakura was so adamant about doing everything with Sasuke that she was willing to give up even her own chances at becoming a shinobi. So in the end, all three volunteered to go back to the academy. This impressed Kakashi enough to let them all stay on. And so, here and now, finally, officially, Team 7, aka Team Kakashi, was born, and Minato could not be happier. And that's where I'm gonna call it for now. I hope you all enjoyed the story. Retelling Naruto with Minato as the main character has afforded me so many cool ideas that I can do. I'm excited to see where this story's gonna go. If you're excited about it as well, make sure you let me know in the comments. What did you like most about the video, or what would you like to see moving forward? Tell me. And if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to click that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when more videos like this drop. And while we're at it, here's some other videos I think you might like. Check them out. Anyway, until next time, peace out.